Welcome to Paranormal Connections, where paranormal experiences coincide with everyday life, with your host, Christina George, only on DTMWickedRadio.com.
Welcome, everybody. This is Christina George with Paranormal Connections. Back again one more week with some great guests, great topics, and some really interesting stuff tonight. We're going to be talking about paranormal activity, paranormal investigating, anything and everything paranormal tonight. I know that we just had Halloween, and, you know, for most of us with abilities, Halloween is just like every other day. You know, we have experiences every day. It's always, well, it's not the same thing, but it's the same kind of scenarios that go on. Many of us, like myself today, I decided to go, as I do many times, to the cemetery to go and meditate. And it's always funny how I get some of the craziest looks when I'm there, you know, meditating. But I find such amazing, amazing places, and it's so relaxing there that I just can't help it. But it's a great place to meditate, and I'm starting to find out I'm not so crazy. I'm finding a lot more people that actually go there to meditate as well. So we are going to be talking everything paranormal this evening. So if for some reason you have the feeling to come on in and join in on the talk tonight, our number is area code 347-945-313, and we absolutely encourage you to call in and share your paranormal stories with us. So tonight I have an amazing guest. I'm sure many of you know him. I've actually been Facebook friends with him for probably about a year or two already, and you know, my numbers are getting so high that unfortunately if I don't talk to people on an everyday basis, they kind of get lost. And his name is Lord Rick Rowe, and as I said, a lot of people know him. I was surprised. He's got a big fan base, and so many of you listeners may know him. Our listeners are probably big fans of Lord Rick, but amazing, amazing guy. I've had the opportunity to be able to talk to him and get to know him, and everybody out there knows me. I don't care what other people say. A lot of drama gets started in this paranormal world, which really deflects what we really should be doing. But I always say people should take a minute to get to know somebody before they judge them. And I will tell you, I was pleasantly surprised. Lord Rick is an amazing husband, father, is very active with his young son. He is the founder of the Paranormal and Ghost Society out of Lake Tahoe, California. And amazing, it's up in the high Sierras, California, and there is a lot of Bigfoot activity up there. He also does cryptozoology, parapsychology, ufology, and, you know, his paranormal investigating, and does it on a pretty wide scale and almost full time. I mean, I look at his page quite often, and you can always find him either, you know, camping out in the wilderness somewhere or, you know, looking for Bigfoot, and amazing guy. So between him and I and all of the listeners tonight, we should have plenty of paranormal stories for you. So, Rick, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great.
I appreciate
Thank you so
all
much
your kind words. I really do, because I don't hear that too often.
Well, you know, it was, for me, it's very saddening because I have been a target of a lot of paranormal, what I call paranormal bullies out there. They hide behind their screens and, you know, make up stuff. A lot of people know for about 6 years, you know, I've had one of my deranged sisters, you know, running around the Internet telling everybody that, you know, the police have been chasing me down and searching and hunting for me for not one, but 2 homicides that I've done. And, you know, I'm on the run and they can't find me. And at the beginning I thought, you know, who's going to believe that? But I was shocked. You know, people, especially when they don't know you. It kind of depends on who gets to you first and whose side of it gets out there first. And, you know, sometimes they don't even care. It's just whatever sounds sensational and drama-filled, and then people start to kind of fill in the blanks and make their own assumptions on how things are going. And I'm so not that way. And it was just something that, you know, for the listeners who don't know, you know, there was, in this field, there's always paranormal drama, and many of the people who listen to me are in the paranormal field, so we know. And we talk about this all the time. It is completely destroying the paranormal field, you know, with all of these wannabes and going out there, and instead of, you know, putting the money where their mouth is and bringing forth, you know, research and evidence and things like that, instead they rather hide behind a screen and, you know, blah, 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 and, you know, throw things at people and look at who he is, look at what this person does, look at this person does. And people just don't realize how powerful that can be and how judgmental people will be. But I'm so pleasantly surprised. You know, you were nothing like what people were saying out there. I found you, you know, highly intelligent and, you know, a very caring dad. And I mean, you really have a passion about the paranormal, and I love that. So I don't give a damn what anybody says. I make my own friends, and I do what I do. So, which is one of the reasons I said it'll probably bring me a whole bunch of, you know, flack for bringing you on the show. But, hey, I'm all about showing people that I'm not pushed around. I don't care. People don't tell me what to do. And any friend of mine is always welcome on my show. So welcome to Paranormal Connections.
Awesome.
So, now you're up there in Lake Tahoe, and I am not too far from there. So I'm in Sacramento, and I actually have a cousin that lives there. Amazing place.
Yeah, it is. I'm about 20 minutes from Tahoe, and I just love to go up there, not just for the paranormal, but because it's so pristine and so gorgeous, and it's kind of like a home away from a home. And so whenever I have a chance to be at the lake or up in the Sierras, I'm there. I'm there, even spontaneously. If I decided I want to go up and do something paranormal, I will just get in the truck, load up the gear, and go. I don't care what anybody thinks, no cell phones, no technology, just me, the lake, the woods. It's all just so great to preserve and appreciate for what it is. And then, you know, the paranormal just tends to kind of fall into place when you do this type of stuff and you go out there and you look for it. I mean, eventually you're going to find what you're seeking. And so out of all the years of doing this, especially since I moved up here, I've had a lot of good paranormal experiences, nothing really bad. They've all been learning experiences for me.
Wow. And, I mean, up in that area, I mean, I've been up there a lot. I know for a fact it's Paranormal Central up there. I mean, you have UFO sightings, you've got, you know, Bigfoot reportings, you have all kinds of paranormal activity that happens, you know, not just in people's homes, but, you know, actually just out on the land. I mean, are you experiencing that when you're out there camping and checking things out? What are some of the things you're experiencing out there?
Well, we did a camping trip at the end of September, and it just had snowed up in the mountains, and there's this place called the Lost Cabin Mine, and we spent the whole day hiking from, like, morning till night. The sun was going down, so I sent Tammy and my kids back to camp, and then me and my dog split off to go to the peak. And I knew I wasn't going to make it back. I knew it was going to get dark, and the sun went behind the mountains. I was caught in the woods at night. And so not only did I have to come off the peak with cliffs all around at night, but then I had to take the long 2.5-mile descent or trail. And you can't always see the trail at night, but something was following me in the woods, and all of a sudden you hear this branch snap, and it stops. It's like animals keep going and going, but something stopped, and my dog was scared out of his mind. And so we just kept moving until we got to the Lost Cabin Mine, where I got an EVP. And it's a man. It's not me. It's just me and my dog. But that proved that the mine is haunted. But as far as the branch snapping in the woods, I really feel that I was being cased by Bigfoot. It's very common in Bigfoot expeditions when you're out hiking 2, 3 in the morning and you're on a trail, or let's say you're not even on the trail, they're out there. They're very nocturnal creatures. So if something, if you start hearing the ground shake or you start hearing branches snap and then you stop and it stops and you shine the flashlight all around in the spotlight and you don't even see what made it, it gets a little bit eerie, because you're by yourself. You really only have you and your dog, and that's your only defense. And so if they really wanted to come out and hurt you, they could. And so every time I go and I get caught up at night in the woods, that's when a lot of my experiences happen, is when it's later on at night and I'll be hiking down off a mountain or something, and I'll hear tree banging or I'll hear heavy walking or something will follow me 2-3 miles, and when I get back to civilization, it'll kind of just veer off up into the mountains because, they don't like to get too close to camps and people and things like that. But if you're by yourself, they probably think you're crazy. They're intelligent creatures. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, have you seen any, visually yourself? Like, have you been able to fully, see one, either just in a glimpse or coming, down a ridge or anything like that?
Last year ago, I went to a place called Bear Creek Reservoir, which has multiple lakes and back dirt roads, and I took one of those dirt roads for miles, and then we set up camp, and there was a creek behind our camp with some odd tracks. Didn't think too much about it, but they were pretty big and Bigfoot-like. And I told my son, I said, tomorrow, you and I, we're going to climb that mountain. And he's like, okay, Dad, So we climbed the mountain in the morning, and there was a bunch of rocks. There was no trail. It was just some offbeat location, just trying to rock climb and get up in the woods. And all of a sudden, from what appeared from one side to the other, I seen a Bigfoot-like creature, a bipedal creature. It was about a little taller than me, maybe 7 feet tall, had reddish-brown hair, and it walked between the two trees. And I went chasing after it because I wanted to get footage. I turned on my camera, and it was gone. It just, vanished in the thin air, and I know what I seen. But the thing is that it appeared like it was living there because we found bedding, we found impressions, we found stool, we found hair all over the place. It was living up there, and later on that night I took off with my dog again to climb an adjacent peak. This is just something me and my dog, not for the kids, and it was pretty difficult. And when I got back, Tammy and the kids had told me that right behind camp something screamed, vocalized, bellowing out of his chest, just a big roar. And she never had heard anything like this before because she's very skeptical of Bigfoot. I'm not, because I've seen it and I've dealt with it. But this thing was mad that we were camping there, and it tried to scare us out of there. I didn't let it get to us. I guess being that I saw it and I know where it's living at, I don't think it made it very happy. And I don't think any humans were up on that part of the peak or up in that area. There's no way to get to it. You got thorn brush, you got big rocks, you got cliffs, and by the time you get up in some secluded area in the Sierras, you realize how small you are. When you stand on that peak and you could see for 50 miles nothing but wilderness, you realize that anything could be back there just waiting at any time, and you might just catch a glimpse of it, or you might, find its tracks. And a lot of times it's tracks, but I'll take tracks over taking nothing at all any day,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Now, I have a question for you. Do you remember what's his name? Justin Smeha. And he had talked about, last year, I think it was in June or something, he had reported that he had been hunting up out of Sacramento, I believe, and he had killed 2 Bigfoots. One was an adult and the other one was supposedly a small child.
An adolescent.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And, I remember when he first did that. Now, do you know about him? I guess you have kind of heard about this.
I have heard about Bigfoot being shot, but I did not hear about this case. The thing is that from what I know, is that when you retaliate with these creatures, they will kill you. I mean, I had a buddy of mine who lived up in Pennsylvania, and he knew a family, and the family lived out in a trailer out on some land, and they're very vocal creatures, especially when the sun goes down. That's when you hear them. And he took a gun, a rifle, and he fired it out the front door of his trailer and hit whatever was doing that. And later that night, around midnight, there were 3 or 4 of them that attacked the trailer. They busted in the windows. They were reaching in the windows. He took his family, got in the truck, and left, and they never came back to the property. So shooting at them, not such a good idea, because there's never one by itself. There's always more than one. And even if they're only separated by miles, they do know how to communicate in the wilderness, and that would be my fear. I would never want to shoot one, but if I had to shoot one, per se, in self-defense, my fear was is another one going to come and kill me and
right.
And drag its body into the woods and drag me into the woods? Because usually there are families of Bigfoots. There'll be sometimes 1 or 2 adolescents, and then there'll be a male and a female. And it's all about self-preservation. They have to breed to continue their lifeline. Otherwise, these creatures would go extinct. So that's where the smaller tracks and the smaller Bigfoot that you see, that's where that comes from, because they're just like any other animal. They're just like human beings. They have younger, well, I call them adolescents, but, an adolescent that might be 12 years old would be my height, per se, 6 foot, maybe 6.5 foot, and by the time it reaches full adult, they can get 8 to 12 feet easily.
Right. And, I guess it really hit the air, well, actually, the media, pretty hard, because, of course, it's anything that, people in the paranormal, it's just like if you were able to, finally capture a video of the Mothman or different, paranormal myths that people think, and we've had all kinds of flashes of, things going through the woods and things, and people will always say, oh, it's a gorilla, or, they'll have all these different things. But, it was interesting about this guy, that not only did he shoot what we think is the mother, but also the adolescent, and it was a small one. And everybody, was saying, oh, he's just making it up, and, he went a step further, and a few people contacted him and interviewed him, and, okay, well, maybe he's got a little bit more credibility, and then he finally broke and disclosed the area, and then, it was going to be, used for a documentary or something. But I was so saddened, he actually even went and did a polygraph and passed it. Wow. But he said that when he actually went and looked, and he realized that this was not just a gorilla or, what people would think, but he said it actually had, human, that it made him so sad that, he just started sobbing, because he's, I don't think he had any idea, what he was doing. He's an avid hunter. So, I would think that you would know the difference myself, because... You should, because bears generally do not walk on both legs for long distances, and... you know what it is? It's the fact of, as most humans are scared of what they don't know, so they shoot first and ask questions later. And the problem is with that is killing these creatures is gonna put them to the brink of extinction. There's not going to be any left, because there isn't that many. There is a healthy Bigfoot population where I live, up along the Carson Range and the Carson Iceberg Wilderness and the Muckalumne Wilderness. It's a healthy population. But if you start, per se, you kill 1, you kill 2, you kill 3, when you start killing them off, it's
there isn't that many. I mean, it's the same thing with tigers. 95% of tigers in the world have been brought to the brink of extinction because people have hunted them for their pelts and so forth. And so if I could give people kind of like a general location of where I've seen it or where I got the prints, but I'll never tell them where this creature is. And I know certain places where it is for sure, but I would hate to have somebody go to my site, copy me, go out there with the intent of having a gun and shoot an adolescent or shoot an adult Bigfoot. It's very sad because they do have a lot of human characteristics, and as weird as this may sound, is I believe that they're more intelligent than human beings, and obviously more civilized because they're learning to coexist with each other for the whole point of self-preservation and survival.
Well, here's a question for you. So now you feel then they live amongst us, or, I mean, why do you think that none have been able to be captured, or they're so elusive? They'll, people will report that they see them, and then all of a sudden, they get close and they just seem to just disappear in the middle, out of nowhere.
Well, there's a lot of theories. A lot of people say that they are an alien race themselves. Other people have said they're pets of aliens. Other people think that they're the missing link. Some theorize that they're the Gigantopithecus, which is an ape-human-like creature that walks bipedal. Mm-hmm. I would think they're very elusive because I don't think they want to be captured, and they probably know. They probably know if they were captured, where would they be, a zoo or on an autopsy table? It's,
right.
They're so, you got something that can be 9 to 10 feet tall, and on all fours it could probably run 45 miles an hour, and on two legs it could probably easily book at 30. It's much more faster and complex than a human. Even if I were to chase this thing down, I would never catch it. And sometimes they hide up in the trees, and the one place people never look is up when they're in the woods. You always want to look up because they can be in the trees.
Mhm. Well, I learned that. I mean, I grew up hunting too, and the thing is not for that reason, but I mean, they would tell you to look up because a lot of times you would be out there in the woods and things are up in the trees. You could have a mountain lion. You could have a snake. I mean, all kinds of things. But you got to be aware of all your surroundings, which would make a whole lot of sense. I mean, and they're probably looking at, what stupid humans down there, they're walking right underneath me and have no idea.
I try to, when I go out hiking, I climb a lot of peaks. I go in a lot of canyons. And the one thing I always look for is caves because the Sierras were created thousands of years ago or 10 million years ago with thousands of volcanoes erupting, and those created lava tubes. And a good example of one is up by Mammoth Lakes, which is about 2 hours south. They have a cave system that goes at least 700 miles, and they haven't even mapped it all. They've only mapped maybe a couple hundred miles. And so it's caves that I also look for because when I find dens in caves, I can examine them, and I can see if something's been living there, whether it's a mountain lion, Bigfoot, some small animals like coyotes. So you always want to look for caves, too, besides looking up in trees. And if you find there are many hidden cave systems, if you find one, chances are something's probably been living in it, especially if it's hidden up on a cliff or up near a peak. Well, you're in Sacramento, but if you were to travel, maybe an hour and 20 minutes out to the Sierra Nevadas, well, you know what it's like. It's such a vast wilderness, and there's planes that have crashed for the last 50 years, and they said there's got to be at least a couple hundred missing planes that they have not found that have crashed up in the Sierra Nevadas. So if we don't find those planes, these are planes that crashed. How are we going to find a creature like Bigfoot? Especially a plane is pretty obvious when it sits in the woods. It's very obvious. But Bigfoot can constantly move and be on the move. It can smell you probably from 2 miles away if it's like a bear has a 10,000 times per human sense of smell. So if this thing might have 10,000, maybe more, maybe 20,000, then it could probably smell you downwind 5-6 miles away, and it knows there's people coming. I need to go hide. I need to go get out of here. And that's why I think that it's so hard to film this creature, because I don't think it has to see you. I think all it does is have to smell you, and it books. It gets out of there.
Well, that's a good analogy. Now, I've also heard that many people feel that they are like an interdimensional creature, and that they can kind of, just kind of open up a doorway and go through it in order. Right, and just in order to get out of there. Now, do you think that that's something that is possible as well?
Well, it's never been disproved that there's alternate dimensions. We still have a lot scientifically to learn about that, so I do think it's possible. I think if these creatures might be intelligent enough that they have their own language. Maybe they come here for food. Maybe they're collecting data on human beings, but they have to go somewhere. And sometimes I wonder to myself when I'm out there hiking and I find, for example, I'll hike one way and on my way back I'll come back to the truck and I'll find a track and I'll be like, I just missed this thing. You wonder where they go. And, when I was working up in Pennsylvania many years ago doing Bigfoot research, the guy had mentioned to me that there is a portal in the area, and he took me to one of the portal sites, and I could not believe it. It was snowing in a 40-foot area, and it was the snow was spinning in a circle. There was a vortex. You could feel it open up, and he said that's where they go. So, yeah, it's a possibility. And, in China they call this creature the wild man because of its human characteristics. And of course, it's a perfect species. When you can combine a primate and a human, you are creating a superb species, and that's what it is. It's more superb than you or I. It has both animal instincts and human instincts. And when you combine the two together, all things are possible. And it's just like the government's secret experiments where they were creating humanities. They combine human DNA with a chimpanzee, and you have something that's 10 times stronger than a human. And what I always think about is when they do experiments, the government does experiments combining the DNA of humans and primates. What happens if maybe they're going to use these as super soldiers, but what happens if something goes wrong in their mind? And attacks a neighborhood. It could kill hundreds of people before someone's able to take it down. So you don't want to play with Mother Nature, but at the same time, I see myself, being a cryptozoologist, I see myself, I stand for preservation, especially for these creatures. And I go out there and I take photos, and I don't always get evidence, but I know it exists. And if you don't map out certain regions and do your research, you're never going to know the truth. So I take different quadrants of the Sierras, and I go out there, and I cover each quadrant, and some give me more evidence than other places. So I kind of got an idea of their migration, how they travel, where they're at most. It's all up in my head. And eventually I can sit there and I can take like a map of California, and I could take a thumbtack or just marker and write down all the places that Bigfoot has either been seen by me or evidence that I've collected. And, it's undeniable. When you're hiking down somewhere in the mountains and you're in some area nobody knows about, and you find yourself, let's say, a 21, 22-inch foot track, and it has toe impressions, it's deep, there's no 8-foot man walking in the woods barefoot, so you gotta take things from a logical perspective and really think about it good and because that's what they leave behind. They leave prints. They try not to, but they can't help it. Even if they come through a portal and they stay out for a couple hours looking for apples or whatever they're looking for, they're going to leave broken branches. They're going to leave tracks. They're going to leave these things. They may even leave hair if it doesn't blow, let's say, on a tree branch, because I've seen hair on tree branches before. And I've gotten DNA over the years, but we always end up throwing it out. It becomes no good because the colleges, people, there's a lot of drama in the paranormal community, and no scientists want to work with me. And it's like, you don't understand, man. It's like I've collected DNA, probably the most credible DNA you can get, and I always end up throwing it away because if you can't get it examined, it's pointless. And it's only good, the stool is only good for so long when you get fresh stool. It's got to be tested right away, or it's corrupted, and that's
it. And even the cost, to get the testing and stuff done, and you really have to have the right people. I know, even myself, I know a couple very avid people who are into, searching for evidence of, that Bigfoot exists. And actually, one of my friends had went with a bunch of people up on a trip, and you could see where something had looked in their truck. So there was like smears and stuff, and you could see it was something. And there was other evidence that they caught during their trip and everything, and they had actually seen a Bigfoot. So they actually had DNA as well. They had all these swabs and these pictures and video and everything, and it literally took them a few years before they could find anybody who was, interested in all of this stuff. And thankfully, some of their stuff had been preserved so that, it could be used at a later time. But, do you think that it is more that the scientific community already knows really that these things exist, but they're really not trying to help the public any way to get this confirmation?
Yeah, I believe that our government is hiding it, because when I was up in northwest Pennsylvania, a buddy of mine told me that some of the rangers had sightings and they weren't allowed to talk about it. They were told, not to say nothing. And I believe that they're in denial. They don't want people to bring DNA. There's probably 10 other people like me that's collected hair samples, and some of them I find near large tracks and things, and we'll put them in a test tube and stuff, but they get thrown out because I need people to be able to test that hair for free, because we're a nonprofit organization. We don't.
Right.
All my money I sink into what I do. I love the paranormal more than I love myself almost. And, so at times I'm like, well, maybe it's better it doesn't get tested, because if it went public, like I said, the first thing humans would be doing is, where did you get this sample from? And they would be out there with their guns trying to shoot one, because a lot of these people want to shoot one for the whole purpose of becoming famous. I discovered it. It's like, no, this creature's been discovered centuries ago. The Native American people referred to this creature as Sasquatch. They know what it is, and they lived with harmony. And of course, back in the 50s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, the Smithsonian, which is government funded, they went in and they dug up burial mounds, and they found giant skeletons going as tall as 16 feet. And I believe some of those skeletons that they found were Sasquatch bones. And, Smithsonian goes 7 stories underneath or whatever, and I believe that they're storing all those bones away from the human eyes so that we can't classify what this is, let alone even, because we don't have a body, we don't have the bones, because they're being hidden by our own government.
Well, and we have Catherine King in chat. She said that she read somewhere that someone saw through remote viewing that these Bigfoots were an experimental species that was formed, and that they can move through dimensions. Do you think they may have one of her friends thinks that he may have a Bigfoot in his cabin when he was a kid? It was dark and he couldn't see. but he said it had big strides, and when it crunched on the leaves outside, then it opened the door, and he said, he was just a kid, but he was so scared. And I mean, I could definitely, see where, that would happen. And I mean, could they? I mean, I guess they could be some kind of experiment, but, as Rick says, you can look back in time, back in with the Native Americans before all of our technologically advanced experiments, and they talk about these creatures. So I'm with Rick. I think that these things have been around for a very, very long time. Now, could they have since then, experimented with these things? I mean, absolutely. Look at, Plum Island is a prime example, of, a testing site where, they breed other animals together and, just all kinds of very strange things and things like that. Their experiments have washed up on shores and, all kinds of stuff. We go to the Montauk Monster, that washed up. And then they tried to say, well, that's nothing. It's a, bloated pig or something like that. And it's like, okay, so why would a pig be in the ocean, number one, and then, washing up. And, just a lot of it doesn't make any sense. And this thing had, like, jagged teeth. And, and then from that, then they started, having the sightings of the so-called chupacabras, and then they were saying, oh, that's just a dog with mange, and then they were linked together, and they're like, oh, these are different chupacabras. And I'm like, what? I mean, where did you guys get this stuff?
The latest thing about the chupacabras is everybody's now thinking it's some kind of hairless dog, and it's not. This is a creature with claws. It can drain the blood out of an animal. It can leap up in the trees. It is no dog. It seems like it's a combination, like a chimera. It might be 3 different species combined. The other thing you want to keep an eye out, too, when it comes to Bigfoot, is that many, thousands of years ago, the Bering Strait you were able to cross. You were able to go through Alaska and head south. So that's why the Bigfoot population is much higher in the north and northwest, because they cross the land bridge. But that still doesn't explain all the other cousins of Bigfoot. You have Australia has its own. The Himalayas have the Yeti. China and the Chinese think of the wild man is what they call it. Florida and the southern states like Louisiana, it's called the skunk ape. Swamp monster. I mean, there's different cousins, and all that changes really is their geography, and based on their geography is based on their DNA. They might be a little different. Their feeding habits might be different in Florida as they are in the Northwest. In Florida, they might eat berries and nuts, but in California, they might take down an entire deer and eat the thing. It's they come in different shades of human-colored fur. They can be red, brown, white, black, all the shades that a human has, it has. I've even heard of some of these Bigfoot having blonde hair, like a dirty blonde hair. So there's different kinds of different cousins,
Well, I'm reading some of the messages in chat and stuff, and, Rick Handham was saying, are they all over America? And it's not just all over America, like Rick said. I mean, these things are all over the world. I mean, we see, different names for them, but, they are the same thing, and a very, very interesting creature. So, all right, well, we've kind of done some of the cryptozoology. Let's talk about the paranormal. Now, you have been investigating, or you founded your group back in 2001, right?
2001.
And you guys have had like over 1,100 investigations. So, I mean, you're obviously not, new to this field or, just joking around and just trying to just have fun and, get a scare or two. I mean, you are into this hardcore, like you said. I mean, I love that because we need more people like you and I that are out there doing this, more because it's our passion. So it's what we're supposed to be doing.
Well, it is. But see, for me, it's not about getting famous. It's not about money.
No.
I do the paranormal strictly from my heart, and I make my decisions that I make out of my heart. If I want to go to Area 51 and I want to show people what it's like and tell my story, I'll do it. And I know the risks that are involved, but I've taken so many risks over the years that now the way I see it is somebody's got to do it. And if paranormal is your passion, then this is what you should be doing. You should be looking for the unknown, because in a way I see myself more as a mentor towards a lot of people and a teacher, because I can share all my... But, I mean, it's just, I've had a lot of crazy experiences, and you know, there's a lot of paranormal groups that say, hey, we're a paranormal group, but they won't touch cryptozoology. They won't touch UFOs. They won't touch monsters, you know, and when I think of paranormal, I think of everything that is unknown to man. So when I go out there, it could be anything we find. It could be ghosts, it could be Bigfoot, it could be a thunderbird, it could be an alien, but I try to cover a wide range of topics to keep things interesting for our viewers and friends that I've made over the years and other groups that I'm allied with and things like that.
Right.
You know,
so you're very well-rounded in the field. But, you know, I was just talking about this, you know, actually to my team and even to in one of my lectures, is that, you know, although the attention that the TV shows have brought to the paranormal has been, you know, kind of a double-edged sword, it's been good, but it's brought, you know, a whole lot of people not really having a clue truly about, you know, what we really do. But for a lot of this really is our passion, and we do a lot of good. People don't understand, like, investigating is not cheap. That's why you see so many groups come and go. It is not cheap, and you know, it's a lot of work to put all these things together. And if you're a real group where you're really, you know, doing your research and, you know, validating things and writing up reports and all this kind of stuff, you know, that's what we're here for. Then you get some, you know, these people who really aren't in there for this. And I talk about how when I started, you know, I've been in this a long time, but I've been professionally doing it for 11 years. And when I first started investigating, I couldn't find anybody to go with me. There was only a couple groups, period, in all of Northern California, and now it's like blown up. And when we first started, it was anything that was, you know, to society was, you know, not normal. That's what we covered. And now that the TV shows have, you know, come out, now paranormal stands for, you know, spirit hauntings, you know, and demonic attacks and stuff. And so it has really put even more separation. Although it's brought more attention to the field, it is now fragmented and separated the field even more so. And I find that people who believe in UFOs and aliens don't believe in the spirits and the demonic attacks. And then you get the people who believe in all the spirits, but they don't believe in the aliens. And then you get both of them, and they don't believe at all about Bigfoot and you know, other creatures. Those are all just myths. And it is amazing to me because, as like you, I investigate everything. And when you look at all these fields from a researcher's stance and all of the data you can compile, you will find that all of these things are very connected. And if you know, researchers would get together and share their, you know, all of their research and their information, we would be leaps and bounds ahead of where we are as far as understanding the paranormal. But I think that that's part of the whole part with the, you know, with the government is, you know, to keep people believing this is only happens in sci-fi movies and, you know, this is just stuff made up for campfires and to scare people.
No,
you know, good dramas.
In the 1950s, our flying saucers, and they couldn't perfect it. But they've had 50, 60 years now to perfect it. And the thing is I when it comes, as you know, because I do post on my wall and on my page, I do shun those type of shows, and it's because I've been on television a few times not just a few times, but I work for the Sci-Fi Channel. And what people need to understand is many, many years ago, I was contacted to do a show like Ghost Hunters. And the producer hired me, said, you know what? He said, you can bring on who you want. You can do whatever cases you want. We'll put it all on TV. Well, the network at the time, these shows were not mainstream. So the network was like, no, we're not going to make money. We're not going to put a show like this. And so that's when I went to Sci-Fi, and I wrote them, and I said, I want to put a ghost hunter show together, make me in charge of it. I said, I'll do the whole thing, crew, everything. And then a year later, they had ghost hunters on, and there are these shows like Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters. They have location coordinators. Well, the location coordinators that find the locations for these guys, they don't get along with me. But they take places off my site and they go to them, and then all they're doing is making a mockery of the paranormal. You know, it's like when I did the show for Haunted Highway, they brought out a German Shepherd, and they gave Dana a treat, and then they filmed it on an infrared cam or thermal cam, and they played it off like that was a hellhound, a spiritual hound. And then they sent the footage to 3 experts, well-known experts. And then, like, I would hear the producers and I would hear the investigators laughing, ha, we fooled them, or, oh, this is going to get the audience really good. And it burns me up. It makes me angry enough where it's like, come on, people, step in line. I'm ready to fight. Because I work so hard at what I do. You know, I climb cliffs. I've been stranded. I've had to be airlifted one time because I was injured. I have done so much over the years. I mean, and I started doing the paranormal when I was a kid. But the thing is that when I moved back to Buffalo, New York, which is where I grew up, I moved back there. I made a decision to devote my life to the paranormal. And so in 2001, I started my group. Then when the TV shows came out, I had noticed that everybody that contacts me through my ads for paranormal investigators, it's always, I want to be like ghost hunters. I want to be like Ghost Adventures. And then I take them out in the woods, and they're scared, and they want to sit in the truck. They don't want to hike at night. They don't want to go in these places. They don't want to help me uncover conspiracies, because that's what I do too, is I go after conspiracies. And I'm just, a lot of the work, out of those 1,100 investigations, probably about half of them I've done either by myself. And in the last 3 years, what I did try to do, and I succeeded at, is I brought my family in to help me, but they help with a lot of projects that are less dangerous, because when it comes to certain things I do, I don't want them involved with. I mean, like, I know where there's some alien tunnels, a reptilian underground tunnel system, and I want to take a sledgehammer and I want to just hammer down the wall that they put up, and I want to go in those tunnels. But that's something that I have to take an experienced team into. I cannot take a bunch of people who are fans of Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters because they think that you just sit around and you do nothing. It's like, no, if you're going to be with me, I may hike you 15 miles. We may camp in the cold. We may do things that is not of the norm. But in the end, if you spend 3 days in the woods camping and you're cold and you search hard enough, you're going to find your Bigfoot tracks. You're going to see a UFO. You're going to have a ghostly or paranormal experience. And that's the problem, is that these shows are all mainstream. They can only get, when they get permission to get in a place, they're only allowed, let's say it's an outdoors location, they're allowed maybe 100 to 200 feet of room to film at that location. And so they don't have access like I have access. I can, I sneak in a lot of places. I trespass a lot for the good of the paranormal, and I get access to everything. If I go in an asylum, I get access to the whole asylum. I just don't set up shop in one little room, and then we bring in a film crew and bada bing, you know what I'm saying? Bada bing, it's done. It's not like that. You really spend all night long doing your investigations, and when you come home and you're all dirty and your clothes are all dirty, you know you've done a good job. You know you gave it your all. But on a show, it's all about makeup. They get food ordered to them. They have 2-3 SUVs they rent. They fill the backs with food, all kinds of junk food for the investigators. And between the investigations that they do, they sit there on Facebook on their iPhones and they play games. They don't even investigate. It's like if you're filming, you should be investigating the entire time, not sitting there running out to the truck for a snack. Or I don't have that luxury. I'm in the woods. If I'm 15 miles from camp, there's nobody to put lipstick on my lips or eyeliner. There's nobody to, rub my shoulders. And that's what it is that they're taking celebrities and they're putting them on these shows, and they're willing to do what I won't do, and that is act, number one, and lie. Those are the two things I will never do. And so I rather have a paranormal group because it symbolizes, my society symbolizes freedom. Freedom to go where we want, do what we want, and then sit there and share that research with the public. And maybe I don't have no investigators really, but my family helps with what they can. And my son, he's an excellent cryptozoologist. He's 12 years old, but he can find a small hair on the ground just like that when we're looking for tracks. He's very meticulous. And he's had more Bigfoot sightings than me. He's had at least 3 to 4 sightings since the 3 years we've been out here. And I've heard things moving around, but he's seen it. And one time he got in a bicycle accident. We were mountain biking for Bigfoot, a little mountain biking expedition. And you go back down off the mountain and you go real fast because it's all downhill. Well, I flipped over my handlebars and got seriously injured. He was about a quarter mile behind me. He fell off his bike, hit a rock, and he skinned his knees. And he looked up, and he said there was this darker creature on 2 legs looking at him with compassion. It was staring at him. It was worried about him. And so I mean, the truth is out there, but you're not going to get the truth when it comes to Hollywood. You have to go out there yourself to get the answers. And I've had people, like about being on this show today, I had a few people privately write me, and they said, I love all those paranormal shows. I can't wait to listen. And I just want them to understand that as long as people continue to watch them, you're basically putting thousands upon thousands of dollars in these investigators' pockets, in the producers' pockets, while they're laughing at everybody. Because that's what they do. Like, I heard the guys like, we're going to make money, we're going to come back a second season, and we're going to fool the public again. And I'm just like, I got threatened by Sci-Fi because I whistle blew. And they didn't like that. And they threatened to sue me, and I said, I don't care. Take me to court. Go ahead. But I'm not going to be lying for you. I'm not going to do that.
Well, I applaud you because, there's not too many people who will do that. And, you say about, they put these celebrities, that's kind of something that peeves me too because, first of all, are no celebrities. They are no different than you and I. And the majority of them were not investigating prior. It's like all of a sudden they get, they're actors or, different things and they meet somebody and then they're like, oh, we can do this, But they really don't have those ethics. It's like, and even some of them sell out. Even some of them are, started out being some great investigators, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, this is good, but the network needs higher ratings. And then how do they get those higher ratings? Well, we just do this. We just, make it like it's a demonic attack, or like you said, using a real dog, and, making it seem as if, by the cameras and everything, as if it's some spirit dog, and being out here, I've known a lot of locations that have been investigated by, these paracelebs, and I've been told many that can't even come back to investigate there because they misrepresented the truth. And, the way it was that I've had offers, my group's had offers, to do different paranormal shows and never, I never say never. If there was if a network came up to me today and said, all right, Christina, we're going to give you a show and we'll give it to you for one season and let's see what we can get, and if the ratings go, we'll do it your way. The ratings go up, we do another season, and if they don't have good viewing, then you're gone. I would probably pick it in a minute. And I'll tell you, it would probably be very good because, yes, they make it seem as if every single investigation they get something, and it's like in 30 minutes they, not only have all these experiences, but they've also have the solution and all the 9 yards. And it's so bull because anybody who knows all this, is like, so not the way it goes. And it kind of disheartens people who really do this, and it's kind of like, this is not what we do, and this is so not the way it is. And I get, and you probably get this too, if you do private cases, but we get a lot of private cases in my group, and a lot of them, when they call, like, I'm under demonic, they will, how do you know that? And they'll say, well, because I was watching whatever show last night, and, the same thing happened to me, and something, the lights were flickering, and then all of a sudden something flew off of the shelf. So, and I go, well, what makes you think that's demonic? Well, because that's what they say on that show. People don't realize how much people, pay attention to this stuff, and, it automatically takes them to all this negativity, where,
everybody thinks dust is demons, so like that's a demon, and I'm like, it's a piece of dust. You gotta think about things scientifically, but you also got to use common sense.
Well, exactly. But do you think a lot of it is because they just don't have the training? I mean, that's the thing, is that they're also, if you listen to my show, time after time, I ask these investigators and these paracelebs, like, how did you get into this, and, what training did you get? And the training is watching these television shows. And if it's not that, now all of a sudden it's opened the whole door to where people are charging for $299. We can teach you how to not only, be an investigator, but we can teach you how to remotely, banish demons from your house without ever even having to step in it. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Really?
Well, you know what? I had the opportunity to work alongside Dina Workman and Jack Osborne, and Jack was very prudish towards me. She was flirting with me, like winking at me, and I think she blew me a kiss at the airport when she boarded her plane. But the thing was that got me about those two is I met them and I asked them, I said, what paranormal experience do you have? And I found out that neither of them have any experience. And they were, and the producers wanted me to kind of train those two. And it's like they didn't, it's like I'm supposed to train these two. They asked me when they were in El Dorado Canyon, are we going to get eaten? I said, what do you mean eaten? We're in a place in the desert, in the Mojave Desert. It doesn't have anything but desert rats and small bobcats and things. But if you have to ask me about being eaten, you're in the wrong field. Because when you go out looking for lake monsters and Bigfoot and all this other stuff, chances are you could be eaten, and for real. And, I learned when I was on the crew, they had about 23 men behind them. And so when Jack was off in the desert in this little 100-foot area filming with the thermal cam, he had about 20 guys standing 5 feet away from him. So any noise, any EVPs, all of it is contaminated due to 23, 24 guys sitting there breathing down their throats. And in my investigations, it might just be me and Tammy, maybe sometimes one other person. Generally, after 2-3 investigations, people just quit. They don't even contact me. They just quit. Some of them, I took this one guy out 2 years ago to this haunted place. A lot of stuff happened, a lot of crazy stuff, and he flipped out. Like I bought him dinner before the investigation, took him out to dinner. I said, you're gonna like this place, but it scared him so bad that he deleted his email address and everything. And
oh wow,
and but that's a guy that watches the shows, and it's like in these shows, they don't want any liabilities. They always tell their investigators, do not climb, do not go on rocks, do not go up hills. They try to tell them that stuff because they don't want them to get hurt. And that's the thing. In real paranormal investigating, you get hurt. I have over 1,000 scars on my body, and every one of them tells a story. And you do get hurt. I mean, I live right now with a messed up back because I've fallen. I fall off a small cliff once. I've messed up a lot of my body because of paranormal investigating. Last year, my ankle was the size of a baseball for 6 months because I got hurt on an investigation. I was up in Yosemite, and of course, you know, being a paranormal group, I try to show people 100% of the aspects of what we do outdoors. So even if we get no Bigfoot, you might see some nature photos of the wild animals. And I followed a bear into the woods, big bear, 600-pound bear, and I got about 15 feet from him, and I quietly filmed him. He didn't seem to be too upset about it. Looked at me a few times, lumbered off. Well, I stepped in a pothole, like a hole in the woods, and my ankle blew up. And I'm like, this was like in the spring, so I'm sitting there all summer long hiking with a baseball-sized ankle that wouldn't heal because 2 weeks later, you're back on another hike, and another 2 weeks later, you're back on a hike, so it never gets a chance to heal. But, you know, I risk my life doing what I do. And when I go on a television set and I sit there and I see them telling the investigators, you guys don't have to do nothing. You guys don't have to hike. You don't have to climb. I think that's a bunch of BS. I think that they should earn their stars and stripes just like me. It's like, go climb that 100-foot cliff with no ropes, nothing. Go climb it, and then we'll talk. Because that's what I've had to do over when I moved out west, is I learned that there's a lot more danger because you cliff climb, you rock climb. Sometimes you're on narrow ridges and you look down and it's like 1,000 feet down. And you have to realize that you could die doing this, especially when it's cryptozoology. Ghost hunting, you know, you can go in a place and get your EVPs and things like that. But when you're getting into hardcore paranormal stuff, you want to go looking for UFOs in the desert, then things get dangerous. Going into mines, I go into mines all the time. There's shafts that I have to go across. I'll inch myself along the edge of a shaft that's 300 feet or 1,000 feet down. One slip, it's over. Goodbye, Lord Rick, you know? And when they do these shows, there's no danger aspect of it. These people get pampered. They get probably paid anywhere from $600 to $3,000 per episode. And, you know, I'm pretty honest about who I am. I may run a photography business, but I surely am not rich. I sink enough money in a loan to take all the road trips that I take to these ghost towns, and it costs me every single dime out of my pocket. And I'm out there risking my life, and then I see on TV this, and I just think it's really contaminating the paranormal community because there really isn't that many passionate paranormal investigators left. And right. I'm one because when I was a kid, when I was about 5-6 years old, I took a ghost photo of an apparition. And what my grandmother and my father did is they sent that picture to a paranormal group, and they aired a live investigation on the radio. And I remember listening to it because back then there was no TV shows. But they would have radio programs. And it was Fort Niagara in Buffalo. But I do believe that the work I do is a force for good because some of the places that we've gone no longer stand. We're the only ones that have video or pictures. One of the places recently is almost fully restored. It's called the Summit Mansion, and it's haunted. It has an underground railroad. It's up in Lockport, New York. I was one of the first people to put that place on the map. And the owner, because I put it on the map, the owner had written, he said, I bought the property, I'm going to restore it. She put in 170 windows the other day ago. People in Buffalo, New York, these ghost groups, the ones that watch these shows, went in, broke everything. So mid-October, I posted a message to all my Western New Yorkers on my board. I said, please spread this property is being preserved, renovated, and it's about to make a history landmark is a National Registry of Historic Places it's going to be put on because it's almost 200 years old, and she's got it half restored. And it would never be this way if it wasn't for what I did. And so we're a force for good. We're conservationists. We conserve nature. We also protect these places. I did a cemetery restoration last year ago at a ghost town. I do a lot of good things. And sometimes I feel like deep down inside I don't think people realize all the good that I've done over the years. They kind of just, they go right to the show, and they don't understand that these people on the shows, they think because they're on TV, they're going to be prudes, they're going to be cocky. I drank a beer at a diner in Searchlight. I had a beer, and I had ordered a Philly steak, and nobody would sit with me. I think I had one of the producers sit with me because he was fascinated with my stories. But, the other investigators sat far away from me. It's like, what are you afraid of? That I'm going to be able to read right through you? Because,
right.
You have psychic abilities. Well, I have some too. And I can read people, and I can foretell the future sometimes, and I have.
Mm-hmm.
I have. And it's very hard for me to trust human beings because
yes.
I was left on an investigation once in the middle of a snowstorm. The guy left me, and my jacket was in his car, and it was like 10 below zero, and I had to walk miles and miles to get to the nearest town. I mean, my facial hair, my face had icicles hanging off it, and so, I don't want to be in a mine and find someone who's going to push me down a shaft. So a lot
right.
of work is my own work because it's like when somebody says I watch a show, it's like, but can I trust you to take you into this dangerous place, or are you going to get scared, freak out, run the other way? You might even push me down a mine shaft by accident.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a field for just anybody. It's a
right.
field. It's a field that belongs to very few researchers who are passionate about it. And like for me, what I tell people is that I'm willing to risk my life for this cause. That is a commitment I have made. If I die, I die, but at least I will die doing what I enjoy. And so far, I think that there's been a lot of good energy on my side because I'm still here, 1,100 investigations almost, and I'm still alive and ticking. I almost had a guy attack me a couple times. I was in Savannah doing ghost hunting, and some guy on his bicycle kept circling around me, and he wanted to fight me. And these are the type of things that I always have to deal with when I look for the paranormal. It's the risk that I take. It's the living I'm more afraid of than the dead. The dead, I'm great with, the dearly departed. But when it comes
right.
to a human being, 3 a.m. out there, and he's looking for trouble, you get your serial killers out there in the desert and stuff, you really got to be prepared for those types of people. And, when I interview my investigators, I tell them right then and there, I'm like, if a mountain lion ever jumps out in the woods, I will put myself in front of you. And I will take that mountain lion on with my bare hands. But I will never let an investigator get hurt. Because I've been through that. I had an
right.
investigator die many years ago on an investigation because we were walking to the destination and a drunk driver hit him and killed him. And so, it missed me by inches. And so I have to make sure that the work that we do is not in vain. His life meant something to me, and he died for our cause. And I almost died a few times for our cause, too. So we have to make sure that everything we do out of the goodness of our hearts, whether it's a small cemetery or a ghost town, because one day, a lot of these places that you see on my site, they're no longer going to be there. Some of them are already gone. I had someone, you know what happened to me? I had someone going to all the places that I went to, burning these places down, trying to frame me, trying to get me arrested. And
what?
And it's like,
what?
I went to this one ghost town. A week later, someone burned it down. I went to a school, and they burned it down 2 weeks after the school. And it's a historic school. Isn't that crazy?
Right. People were trying to point it towards you're the one that was responsible, or
Well, the thing is that every location I ever do gets put on our site. And, the first 6 or 7 years, I didn't take all positions. The first 6 or 7 years, I did EMF readings and photography. Then when I realized I couldn't find anybody, then I started producing my own films. I started doing EVPs, and I learned how to do every position in my group for myself. But the thing is that, I did Wadsworth School a couple years ago. Nobody had any pictures inside. No, the place is all wood. It's from the 1800s. And 2 weeks later, not even 2 weeks, someone went in. They burnt the whole school down. And somebody sent me a message on YouTube and deleted their account. And they said something really sarcastic to me. In other words, they said, "Oh, did you? I bet you knew it burned down, didn't you?" or something like that. And it's probably the person that burnt down the place, And they're trying to. The thing is people are always trying to frame me for doing things that I don't do. And there is a lot of good people, but there's also a lot of bad people out there. And the bad people will go and they will deface these properties. They will break windows. They think that's ghost hunting. They're like, let's make this ghost angry. Let's break a window. Let's hoot and holler. That is not any way to work with entities. I do a lot of entity work, but, that's not how you get their attention. All you're doing is degrading the property. And so a lot of places on our site, they no longer stand. They've been burnt down. And then there's places on our site I wish I never put on there, because when you have a locations coordinator who hates your guts, he's going to go to your site and he's going to take places off your site and put them on TV just in hopes of trying to, get me upset over it. And the only thing that makes me upset about it is some of these places that I've done, they're like best kept secrets, They're meant to be observed through our site. I don't want them to air on TV and then all of a sudden thousands of people want to go there, disrespecting the deceased, damaging and defacing the property just because they put it on TV. And then when it's on TV and I look at it, I was already there, and I'm thinking, they are straight up lying. So, I've been there. I've done it. I started my group in Western New York. I was one of the only groups. And by the time I left Western New York to live in Florida for 4 years, there had been approximately 120 people that called themselves paranormal groups. And that one guy wrote me one time, because I did a haunted ship, and he says, we got on board. I said, well, that's fantastic for you, but getting on board is very hard. You have to climb a wire over the water and to get on the ship, and you got to climb upside down. Well, the one guy fell off the wire, broke his arm. The other guy that made it in went in, spray painted, broke everything, and he was telling me about it. He's like, yeah, we messed that place up. And I'm just like, wow. It makes me sick to my stomach, because here I am going to these places to preserve them. I mean, that's why we put, mainly our site has photos, but we the last few years we've put hundreds of EVPs, and we got over like 1,500 videos almost, and it's all because we're working hard, because we know that these haunted locations, they will not be here forever. And it's just like, I live near Virginia City. I'm not far from there. Great place to investigate. But the problem is with Virginia City is you got people that say, I got a paranormal group. They never leave Virginia City. Like, they stay in Virginia City the entire time they're out there. And then they start charging for tours, ghost tours and all these things. And it's just like they're making thousands and thousands of dollars. And it's like, but where's your field research? Where have you traveled to? Where have you been? What have you done? What are your achievements and accomplishments? I mean, I have photos of apparitions on my site. You know, at one time we used to cover the orb thing. We stopped doing it, but that was years and years ago. And now we mainly focus on getting photos of pure apparitions because those hold weight in parapsychology. But I mean, you know, this field has changed, and everybody wants to do this as a hobby, and they don't understand that this is a science, and it requires a lot of work, a lot of funding, danger, and a good core group of people that you can work with. And I would love to work alongside with other cryptozoologists and other groups and things, but the problem is that people don't want to work with me. Like, I'll get a ghost photo, and the person with me will get jealous and quit. Oh, this is stupid. I can't get nothing. And it's like, you know, this is something that you grow into, and it's always based on the amount of hours in field research you do. And the more field research and time you put into this field, the better the results. If you go out for 20 minutes to a cemetery, maybe once every 6 months, and you're a paranormal group that does that, you're not going to get very far. So we do a lot of locations. We do all kinds of locations. You can name it, we've done it. We've done asylums, train stations, tunnels, catacombs, caves, you know, mines and outdoor woodsy places. And that's the only reason why I moved out west. It was because I wanted to live out my dream, is to be a paranormal group that could experience the whole alien UFO phenomena, ghost, and Bigfoot, all jumbled together as one. And it's been great the last few years of living here. I have no regrets. I've seen a lot. I've experienced a lot. And I'm ready for 1,000 more investigations.
Well, the one thing you don't ever have to worry about, I'm not too far from you, and as I said, myself and my group, not only do we do about one UFO Skywatch a month with all the top-grade equipment and a big 50-inch flat screen TV to connect it all with so everybody can see what we're seeing through the goggles. But we also do, you know, events with other groups and have some really amazing stuff coming up. And actually, I'll after the show, I'll talk to you about something that we have coming up in the near future that we're going to be videotaping and investigating, and it's kind of an interesting one. But you always, with PPRS, you know, you always have a group close by. You know, we do a lot of Bigfoot hunts and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, we can always get together. My group would be happy to work alongside you at any point. But
I have some places in Sacramento where you're at, too, that are really interesting, you know. So, I mean, if I come up there and stuff like that, I have no problem connecting with you. I would love to work with other groups. You know, I have so many tales I can tell because I've dabbled in a bit of everything. And you know, another fascinating thing for me is UFOs in the universe, life outside our planet. And I've always been interested in that because I belong to a lot of UFO groups on Google communities, so I watch all the latest UFO videos. And I think to myself that even though I have only captured pictures of UFOs, I have one video, but I have seen some things in the desert that have really opened up a new world to me. And you know, aliens, I believe I've been abducted at least once, and I think that happened last month ago. And it was pretty terrifying, to be honest with you, because I went to bed about 5 in the morning. I stay up all night most of the time to train myself so I can be up in the middle of the night for investigations. And I remember, like, I had missing time, and I remember seeing my son laying next to me on this like metal table, and that's all I can remember from it. But you know, the thing is that there are aliens out there, and when they look at you and I, they see the human species as cattle because they are so technologically advanced. You're talking millions of years of technology that they have developed. And when they come here and they see war in Syria, genocide, murder, rape, pillaging, all that kind of stuff, they don't want to have anything to do with us. And so I always tell Tammy, and I always ask my kids, what will you do if one morning you wake up and you see an Earth-sized mothership up in our skies? What will you do? Because they're not here to make peace. You know, they are here to invade. And I truly would believe that if I seen a mothership in the skies, that I would have to take the appropriate steps for self-preservation, just like Bigfoot hiding in the woods. I would probably have to go live in the woods to live.
Okay, well, question though. Okay, so what gives you the impression that they're here to invade and they're here to, hurt us?
I don't think
it's interesting, and then I'm going to give you my idea.
Well, here's the thing. I would think, number one, our planet offers a lot of resources, but the other reason would be is that we are hostile towards them. I was watching a program yesterday about the Russian Roswell, and I found out that in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, Russia had a special project to shoot down flying saucers. And they had so many planes that were shot down, or like one plane had a beam of light. It just clipped the wing, and when it landed, the wing was glowing. It was trying to beam it up. It was trying to take the plane. And I believe that our hostile actions against these aliens, for example, when Roswell happened and we captured the live bodies, there was a couple of living bodies. What we did to those beings were horrible, and I don't think these aliens are forgiving. I think that they might be watching. Maybe they're going to sit here and watch another 100 years till they invade. Maybe they just want to learn everything they can possibly learn before they decide what it is they're going to do. But if they put you on a table and they slice you open, I would not call that a peaceful alliance. I would call that a violation. That's you lose control. You have no control over them taking out your eye and putting your eye back in.
Right.
They do these things,
But let's stop there, because once again, it's I think that it's perception, and a lot of times people misconstrue, misunderstand what's going on. First of all, I feel like obviously we can see things in the Egyptian pyramids and cave drawings. We can see that people have known that there were UFOs and stuff for a very long time. They're depicted in many things. But if they were really here to attack us or were hostile, as technologically advanced as they are, they could have came and wiped us all out at any point, and they haven't.
You're right.
But just with no different than when we have the good and the bad here on Earth of humans. It would be the same thing in space, I would assume. There's good and bad in everything, all races, all entities, things like that. So, I think that there are some that, are definitely bad, and they do not have anything good, for what they're doing or any good intent. But I do believe that there are other ones that are. And from many that, and now, mind you, I've been investigating, I've interviewed thousands of abductees and contactees. And some of them have, very good experiences. Some of them have very bad experiences. But the one thing that I find is with the bad experiences, when they feel that they've been abducted, the reason that they feel that it is such a bad thing and that they're out to get us is because of their perception, that they were taken and it's done against our will and they don't have our permission, and so, things like that. But I remind people, and I've got an illness with no cure, and anybody who's been very sick or known anybody who's been very sick, will have these illnesses. We'll go to the doctor, and the doctor will say, oh, you've got this or whatever, and we're in order to do this, we're going to have to, stick a tube up here and, through here and out the other side, and it's going to be pretty painful, but, you'll be all right. We just got to make sure what's going on. Even though it's horrific, it'd be a horrific procedure just because of the fact that we were told it was necessary and that, that we'll be okay. We'll do it, and we don't feel those same feelings, right, because we've given our permission. But a lot from what I get of these entities that are coming, these alien entities, is that many of them are researchers and scientists. And a lot of them are doing, these abductions and stuff. They are getting information from us, diagnostic, information, medical information from us for whatever their reasons are, which I believe is for the hybrids and all of that. But we also have to remember that, we also have alien races that are working with our government and within our government. So, it's kind of sad, like when I see people that feel that, all alien races are out to get us and destroy us and things like that, because that's the kind of stuff that's going to create,
it's fair.
chaos if they ever do show up.
I don't think we're all bad. I agree with you 100%. I'm just saying that if there's a mothership outside our planet, there's got to be millions of beings in there, and what they're capable of. They're far more superior than us.
Right, but what if they're there to help us?
Hmm?
What about if this mothership came and we were about to become under attack, maybe from a negative alien race or maybe from our own government, and maybe that at that point they would step in. From what I understand, once again, from, so many discussions and interviews with people who've been, that are contactees that have not had a horrific experience but have been given information to bring back, is that, there's a whole lot we don't know about it, but there's been a treaty that has been in place with our government and certain alien races for quite a while, and in exchange our government agreed that they could basically abduct the citizens of the world and for their research, and that's why the abductees are taken but then they're returned. But that they've been, protecting us for a very long time, and I could see, that where this is all, going. Like they, first there was no such thing as aliens. Well, first with Roswell, there was they said that it crashed and we got, live aliens and all this, and then they just wiped that away. And nope, that didn't really happen. Nope, it was a weather balloon. It's all gone, And then we put all these, shows out, and but it's just science fiction, just make believe, And then we start getting a little bit more information, and then as things come out, it's right. Like now you see every single alien show that you see is that they're here to come and kill us, and all electronic things are all coming after us. Absolutely.
But I mean, I'm the type of person. See, I'm a very peaceful person. I'm not a violent person. So I mean, I'm not out to shoot at anything or kill anything. I care about things as simple as a flower or a butterfly. That's just who I am. But I'm intrigued by alien races because I would like to learn about our universe. And all you can do is hope that they're peaceful. But, I mean, like 4 years ago, Tammy and I went inside some mine in southern Nevada. And we were in the mine about 2 in the morning, taking EVPs, pictures, things like that. We came out of the mine, and we were heading back to the vehicle. And all of a sudden, this white and blue object was heading straight towards us from the sky. And right when it almost hit the mountain, it was like a slingshot, just went right off to space. But it was a blue and white object, and it was the most amazing thing. And then when I moved out here, I snapped a picture of my son, and up by this hidden lake that we hiked to, and there's a UFO behind our shoulder. It's a UFO. It's a craft, and it's a craft that there's no way we can identify it. It's an unknown object. I don't know anything to be shaped like that in our skies, and it's right behind our shoulders in the sky over the lake. And it's like, how did this happen? Is it because we weren't looking directly at it and we just snapped the photo accidentally? But I've had my experiences with them, and it is amazing when it does happen. I've also heard of cases where humans been abducted and never returned. I've also heard about human and cattle mutilations, where they found humans without any blood in their body or surgically removed parts. So I'm not about to see. The thing is with me is that there's not a lot I fear. Like if I was out in the desert and I seen an alien, I'm not going to get in my truck and run from it. I'm probably going to make contact with the being. But that's my thing. I'm there to learn. I can't teach anybody anything if I don't experience it. So hostile, not hostile, you got to take a chance. That's what the paranormal is about. It's about every time you go out and you investigate, you take that chance at either contacting the dead or seeing a UFO or being abducted, or maybe even getting rocks thrown at you by Bigfoot. It's always a chance, but it's a chance worth taking if it means getting down to the truth.
Right. Oh, I completely, agree. It's just, once again, I listen to people talking, and we can still see that, even in investigators like you and I, there are certain things that, cause that fear factor, and it's once again that unknown. And I think that it's like if you had done as many interviews with, with abductees and contactees as I have, and different things, and maybe a regression is something, that I think you feel a lot of answers. I'm about to go through the regression as well this coming week. I've had to put it off for a while because of me being sick, but I'm going to do it, and we actually have a regression therapist who is part of our group. So I could definitely, hook you up with somebody if that's something that you're interested in. But it looks like we've got about a half an hour left, and wow, the time always flies.
Indeed.
Yeah, I do want to, once again, if anybody has any stories that you'd like to share, or you have a comment or a question for either myself or Rick, feel free to call in at area code 347-945-5313. And I want to say thanks to our chat room. We have such amazing listeners. You guys blow me away each week. Every week, there's 2 shows, Mondays and Wednesdays, and it just never fails. The numbers, get larger and larger, every week. And without all of you wanting to listen to the topics that I bring, I wouldn't have these shows. So I really want to, give thanks to all of the chat members. And it looks as if we have a new listener, and it is Podcast 13. And Podcast 13 says, most shows normally can't keep me listening for any longer than a couple minutes, but I've enjoyed this one enough to register for an account. So I want to say thank you. We appreciate you, listening. I'm so happy that everybody, does find all of this so interesting. And I do try to, stay away from the whole paraceleb thing. I try to bring, investigative teams, authors that have, books about their own experiences and things like that. So anybody has any type of subjects that they would, or topics that they'd like me to discuss on the show, or would like me to have a specific guest, feel free to, send me a message. We always love to hear from you. And I want to say thank you to my amazing producer, Tiffany. She does such an amazing job for me every single Monday and Wednesday. She's awesome. So for this last half hour, what I would like would be talk about some of your scariest paranormal adventures. Because I think that our personal ones, our personal ones are always the best. And obviously, since we've talked about just about everything in the paranormal world except for these, I may have to have you come back on another show, dedicated to just the stories. But I think it's been an amazing, well-rounded show. So we'll leave this last 30 minutes to amazing encounters. So, has there ever been a time that you've just been so scared that you have not wanted to go back to somewhere, or it just really shook you to your core?
Oh, every place that I go to, I always want to go back, and sometimes I can't because they're on like I'll take plane trips somewhere, and it's just not feasible. But I will say that, I mean, there's never been a point where I've ran. The only time I ever really ran was about 2 years ago. I was up in the Desolation Wilderness, which is known for its Bigfoot activity, and Tammy and my son Richard were about a half a mile to a mile ahead of us, and all day I was taunting Bigfoot. You know, I was doing vocalizations, tree banging. I really wanted to get something up there, and I heard a deer being taken down, and it screamed. I mean, you could hear this thing being mutilated, and about an hour later, when I got down on the trail, made it a couple miles, my son and I decided to put our backpacks down. It was very late at night, like midnight, and I sat my backpack down, and I grabbed a drink of water, and I heard something breathing really heavy, and it was coming towards us like you could, you know, when something weighs 800 pounds, the ground shakes. Well, the ground was shaking. It was big, and it was coming, and it was breathing, and we couldn't see it. It was like it was invisible. And I told my son, we are getting out. Grab your stuff. And it chased us for a quarter of a mile. And then all of a sudden, we got to some cabins where people rent during the summer. It backed off. It's like it knows, okay, I'm getting into civilization. I need to kind of, you know, fall back. It was a very terrifying experience because how do you deal with something that you can't see, but you know it's there, the ground's shaking, you hear it breathing, bellowing out of its chest. And I consider that a very terrifying experience. I think anybody else that would have had that would have had the same reaction, that we are in its territory, we need to get out. And that's all it was. It did not want me there. I think it was offended that I was trying to communicate with it. And, then months later I had another experience where my son and I were looking for tracks along the Stanislaus River, which cuts through the Sierras, and I was bending over trying to look for a track, and a massive rock flew past my head, followed by another rock, and then another rock. And none of them were being thrown at my son. They were, whatever it was trying to hit me in the head. It was trying to, conk me out. And I told my son, I said, this is typical Bigfoot activity. A lot of primates will throw rocks and things. I read a story a few days ago about a group of gentlemen who were attacked with rocks. So me and him booked. We did not run, because when you run you trip and you get hurt, but we left the scene because it did not want us there, and I believe it was up in the trees because the rocks were coming from the trees. And it's a really scary experience, because if you get hit with a rock in the temple, that's death. You're dead. And these rocks were flying at me so fast, like the speed of a baseball being thrown, and they were just missing my head by like half an inch. And I'm going to get hit, and it's going to hurt. If it hits me in the head, my head's going to bleed. Once I was in a mine, a haunted mine. You have to climb to the peak to get to it. It's very deep. It's like 7 stories underground, 3,000 feet deep maybe. And some of the tunnels in the mine are really, they're really short, and I'm a tall guy. Well, I stood up, and I hit my head so hard that I had a concussion. And it was just Tammy and I was all dizzy and almost about to pass out, and we had to get out of there because a snowstorm had hit Mount Potosi. And imagine trying to get off a mountain with a foot of snow and ice, and you have cliffs all over, and you have no trail or nothing to follow, and you know that if you slip, you're going off the cliff. Well, I had a concussion, and I had to climb off the mountain in a blizzard from that mine, and, my footing wasn't very well. It was freezing outside. It was a very dangerous situation. It could have turned deadly for us. when I started my group out, I started it out in Western New York, and there was a reason for it because, see, I grew up in Buffalo most of my life. I mean, for 19 years I lived in Buffalo, and I went out west, and then I moved my family back to try to make amends with my family. Didn't work out, so I ended up to keep myself busy and to get into the paranormal, I actually started my own group. And I remember even the first, 20 investigations that we did, we had some ghost experiences that some people never have in their life. And I remember there was one, and I always like to tell the story because it's one of the most amazing experiences I've had with an entity, but I was in an old cemetery, and there was if you want to call it a shadow being, it was pitch black, solid black, about 7 feet tall. It had claws. It hovered about a foot off the ground. And I had an investigator at that time who tapped me on the shoulder and said, there's somebody in the cemetery, I think. And when I looked over, this thing's hovering off the ground. And I got about a 6 to 7 second view of it hovering. But before it hovered, you ever see those Celtic crosses in cemeteries? Well, or Irish crosses? Well, this thing grabbed the cross, and you could see its claws, its long black claws, and it peeked around the cross. And you know what? It made contact with me. It looked directly at me. And then it came up behind the cross, and I couldn't believe what I seen with my eyes. And it was really strange because, entities can follow you home. Well, the girl that night got back to her house, and her whole door was busted down. And that night, about an hour after the investigation, I heard heavy walking on the porch, and it stopped. I have a screen door. It stopped at the screen door, but it wouldn't come in. And we were fouled that night. And I can't say it's a ghost because I don't know what that thing was, but I know that thing was not human. The thing is that when you're caught off guard, I guess that is when things get a little bit eerie. It's when you don't expect something to happen. It was in a farmhouse one time. I had a ghost swear at me, tried to lock me in the wine cellar, and the guys were all scared of that I was with. And I was just like, you got to somebody in the group always has to be calm. Even if you're coming close to dying, you still have to remain calm. That's the only way you get out of something like that. And, I visit a lot of outdoor places, and I get caught. For example, I went out in Lake, there's a place called Lake Mead or Hoover Dam, which is outside of Vegas, and there's a ghost town that's just recently emerged because the lake has been getting drier and drier. And we were at the ghost town, and on our way back, a huge storm had hit. We had lightning bolts striking within feet of us out in the desert. Oh, wow. And, yeah, they were all over. Lightning bolts were everywhere. I almost got struck by lightning. Tammy had her back turned, but there was a bolt that, missed her by a few feet, and I seen it with my eyes. And the thing was that by the time we made it to the vehicle, the rain started to come. And out here in Nevada, we get a thing called flash flooding. And if you're driving your vehicle in a canyon, that canyon could have a 20-foot wall of water. I had to drive out of this canyon and through the desert, and the road was just vanishing like we were going to be dropped off the mountain. It was just being washed away, and I was speeding and driving, and it was like a scene from that disaster movie, 2012 or whatever. I mean, I was losing road, and that could have ended up in a deadly situation. And I know Tammy was scared because Tammy, she was crying, she was upset, and I'm just like, you're gonna have to trust me because one of my skills is I'm an extreme off-roader, and I've been doing off-roading for years and years and years. And if anybody could off-road, it's me. I mean, because, out here in the West, you get these 40, 50-mile dirt roads, and sometimes they're rocky, and you have to know how to handle it, because, you know, getting stranded somewhere is bad. And here's the other thing you got to watch for, is like one night I was going in a mine, and right before I got in the mine, this is like 50 miles in the Nevada wilderness, some guy pulls along my vehicle, takes a flashlight and looks in. And I see this guy doing it. And I yell out to the guy, I'm like, I said, you better get away from my car. You have 10 seconds or I'm going to come after you, because it's 3 a.m. and you're snooping around my vehicle. And that's very serial killer type of behavior, seeing if, you know, there's a couple in there, or seeing if maybe there's a person by themselves. And the guy did take off. But when you're down a dirt road 30, 40 miles from civilization and you encounter a pickup with a couple guys, you know, that's probably more scary than any experience that I've had, because out there you can be killed and dump down a mine shaft and nobody's ever going to find you. Nobody's going to know what happened to you. And see, that's the problem with living in Nevada. Not so much here, but across the state, there's been a lot of men that have been coming up missing the last 3 years, men my age. And their cars are found, the bodies are never found. And so when we go into these mines and things like that, we have to keep in mind that it's possible that bodies have been dumped down some of them shafts.
Right.
And
you never know what you might encounter.
I one time went to climb the Sheep Mountain Range, which is north Las Vegas, and I wanted to do the expedition myself, and I had to be airlifted out of there. I couldn't climb. Once it got dark, I couldn't cliff climb because I couldn't see anything. And I remember that I did climb some cliffs to get down into the Washer Canyon, and I remember that both my shoes, the soles ripped out, so I was hiking barefoot for miles. And I remember it started to rain a little, so the rocks got slick, and I fell, and I started sliding, and my body was hanging off a cliff, and I'm holding on to this little desert plant, and I'm almost about to go over and fall to my death. And I'm gripping this plant with one hand and all my might, trying to pull myself up and over. I'm like, I guess we don't go that way. It's the dangers that we deal with. It keeps things exciting, but they also could be, like, for somebody that might come with me, that would probably make them quit. They would be done. They'd be like, you know what, this isn't worth my time. But they don't understand it is worth your time, especially if you go out multiple times and you gather really concrete paranormal evidence. Some things are worth the risk. And,
this is truly for a special breed of people. Not everybody is cut out for this kind of work. And I even tell people, we always need research. So, if people want to go out and check out places, that's fine. I really kind of, encourage people to stay out of doing private home cases, especially when they really don't understand what they're doing. And I also deter people from going out and doing, like the Bigfoot searches and chupacabra and going into mines and stuff when they don't know what they're doing, because there are so many things that you can encounter, so many things that can happen. And, this isn't for just, little enthusiasts that, say, ooh, it would be fun to be scared. And so, I definitely get it. But I think that, people like you and I mean, and there are a good amount of us out there who are doing these for the right reason, where, it's coming out of our pocket. It's really, this is because this is what we're supposed to do. It is our passion. It is our quest. And that's not going to change anything. And as time's going on and people are starting to wake up and people are starting to realize that they're not crazy, that this stuff does exist, it is starting to touch those non-believers. And so, we're doing what we have to do. We've got about, 11 minutes left, so I've got 2 questions that we want to get taken care of out of chat, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity real quick to give any contact information or anything you may have coming up or anything like that. So first of all, one of my good friends and listeners, Carlos, is from Brazil, and he is asking that have you heard of any rumors that there are Bigfoots in Brazil?
I actually have heard that there is Bigfoot in South America, but in the jungles. I mean, they just found in South America the city of giants. And so that just tells you right there that South America has held its secrets for thousands of years. So, yes, there's not as many high reports because when they cross the Bering Strait, a lot of the Bigfoot population, they kind of condense themselves into Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. But there are occasionally reports from the natives, particularly in the jungle. And so if you were in the Brazilian jungle, you could possibly find evidence of this creature's existence if you're willing to go in the jungle. And not a lot of people want to.
Right. And he was saying that where they heard of being in Brazil in the Amazon region. So, I would think so too. And having them there once again, the Amazon regions, those are pretty harsh environments for people to go out, and it's so vast and it's so big, that all these years and we still haven't, been able to have researchers that, can figure this all out and bring back some evidence that this actually is going on. But, I think that each time that, each one of us brings forward these things, and, myself and my group, I'm not so worried about putting stuff out on Facebook because we do a lot of private cases where people don't want that information put out, and I feel that, when you put it out there, you're just opening yourself up to, people slamming and trying to discredit you. We know what we're doing, and, where I share the information is like on the radio shows and in my lectures when I tour. And so I think that little by little we are getting that information out. Now, if somebody wants to contact you or perhaps they're up in that area and they'd like to, they've been looking for a team. I find people all the time that are looking for groups that they can join up with. But if they had questions or want to get together to do a big Bigfoot hunt or something, how can they contact you?
Well, they can contact me through my Facebook, which is AngelOfThyNight. They can also email me at LordOfThyNight altogether at AOL.com, or they can go to my website, and that is www.paranormalghostsociety.org. And it's not ghost spelled with an S, it's just the word ghost and then society.org. And you can go to our site, and when you enter our site, you can go to the main page, you can click the investigation archives. I've written 2 books. They're for sale at lulu.com called Strange Kinzua, and then the other one called The Underworld Amongst Us, which is basically, it shows some of my best entity shots. And, I mean, the book is priceless. It really is because what you're looking at is some of my own work, crafted out of communicating with these entities, getting them to come up to me for the picture. And that is half of the battle, because it takes a lot to get an entity to cooperate with you. But I've always had that ability, even as a kid. And one example of it is they have these cyanide tanks up by Virginia City. They used to process the gold and silver. They use cyanide to do it. And I remember once I said, "Give me a sign if you're here." And I knocked on the cyanide tank 3 times. Something knocked 3 times back. So, if people want to get involved, I really need the team members. It's I'm a loner in this field. I mean, it's the truth. I would like to get a team of about 3 other people that are not going to be biased when it comes to the research. In other words, I want them to be into everything paranormal, not just say, hey, I'm only going to come to the ghost hunts, forget Bigfoot, forget UFOs, and all that other, all these other topics of interest. So if you go to my site, there is ways to contact me through the site. If you read field reports, my email address is attached to every single field report. There's almost 1,100, and I always attach my forums. I run a bunch of Yahoo forums. I run a Google Plus community. It's always, all you have to do on Google Plus, type in Paranormal Ghost Society. Same thing with Facebook. And I don't care how you contact me. You can contact me on my wall. You can contact me on any of my forums. You can contact me under Facebook, under the Facebook page or Google community. You can post it right up on the wall. I want to join your team. Because my plans are, I've done almost 1,100. I'm ready to do 1,100 more. I'm ready to take things up even more of a notch. I'm going to start getting into the hollow earth theory and underground alien bases and secret locations. And I can't do it by myself. I can't. Even though I'm not afraid to go by myself, I need other people who can film and take readings and write reports and document things and do things the way it's supposed to be done, not the way that you see on TV, but the way that it is there for our viewers, our listeners, people who follow our site, so they can get something out of this. They can learn. They can enjoy the photos. They can enjoy the videos, and they can enjoy real paranormal evidence, not contaminated evidence caused by, per se, a group of 20 people tagging along. No. A few people, good-hearted people, all passionate about the paranormal, going out. Number one thing that's important is to have fun doing what you're doing. And, our motto is truth, adventure, and friendship. And we take all of those three things together and we combine them into every single investigation. And like I said, I'm still alive. And as long as I'm alive, I'll keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not going to quit. I know I got haters out there. They put up, I'm a child molester. I'm a criminal. I'm this. I'm that. And they say I'm a crackhead. And those kind of things, they bully our group. And so my conclusion is maybe there's just a lot of people who are jealous, and it's like there's no reason to be that way. Everybody can work with us. Other groups can work with us. Other people can, when they come out to South Lake Tahoe or Virginia City, they can contact me. I'll have dinner or lunch or a brew with you, or we'll go form some of our own investigations to some places. But I want to work with others. And I don't want others to judge me, and stereotype me. I want them to look at the work that I do at face value and understand that, this is something, I'm in it for the long run. I'm not having a 1 month group. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
This is going over a decade. So,
well, I hope that, this gave an opportunity for all of my listeners to, a little bit of, Rick and what a great guy he is. I mean, no matter what people say, no matter what people make up, give everybody the equal opportunity to show themselves. And, it's not about what people say that, they do or are, but, get to know him. And like I said, I've taken the time to get to know him. I think it's an amazing friend. My team will definitely be, getting together with you. We'll go in and either do an investigation, we'll do something, make a big to-do out of it. But before we go, because we only have about 2 minutes, I forgot last week, and I do want to put out a request for one of my very good listeners and dear friends, Jay Black. And his wife, Sharon, has been very ill, and so we're asking that I put on my Facebook, we also ask the listeners to please send out your prayers, positive healing energy to, his wife, amazing, wife and mother, and, Jay's such a great, amazing guy, too. So we would like to, definitely ask for that help from everybody out there so that we can get her back up and feeling better as soon as possible and back to the regular life of having some fun and enjoying it. There's nothing worse than being sick. So, Jay, this is a shout-out to you, and definitely we hope that Sharon is feeling better very, very soon. For anybody who does want to get a hold of me, my link, or if you can do my Gmail, is paranormalinvestigator916@gmail.com, and in the chat room I have listed all of the different links for my Facebook page as well as the radio show pages. Check it out. We'll put Laura Rick's information on the Paranormal Connections page, and we will see you next week. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, Rick. Thanks.
Good night.